Indeed. I'm a consultant physician at St George's Hospital and also a professor in the medical school, so you may ask why on earth am I bothering to stand as your candidate for UKIP. And the reason being is that in the course of my work it's become very clear that we're being prevented from doing our jobs because of what, when you dig underneath, are European Union directives that have been ill thought through and unfortunately implemented by our government. Every other government in the European Union seems to select them. The first one of it, which affected my job, so I was very, very angry about this, European Union Clinical Trial Directive. Overnight, I was told I could no longer do the clinical trials I was doing unless I did it to a standard that required £2 million a study. And then I found that we were unable to look after our patients properly. The standard of care in the NHS has really deteriorated due to the European Working Time Directive. And that means nobody is allowed to work more than 48 hours, or there has to be a very good reason. This has caused unbelievable pandemonium in delivering care in the NHS. And you can promise, the other parties can promise all they like, that they'll do this, they'll do that, they'll provide more doctors, more nurses. It doesn't matter. Until you address these directives, it is all a complete waste of time. And this made me realise that it is the European Union that is the problem. We joined up with the European Free Trade Association and have very good trade arrangements and everything like that. But over the years, it has morphed into a multi-monster hydra. It has really become the most criminal, corrupt organisation that apart probably from Russia's Putin. And I'm not over-exaggerating when I say this. Everybody says, but it doesn't matter, it's all for the common good. If we get out of the European Union, we'll lose this, we'll lose that. So I get up every morning, I scan all the newspapers, and I was staggered to read this on the City AM, normally totally pro-EU. It says, leaving the European Union would be a win-win situation for the UK. Forget the scaremongering that so often accommodates debate about Britain's EU membership. Leaving the EU would be a win-win for the UK. We'd have more international influence, create more trade and jobs, and regain sovereign control over our own laws and borders. I thought I was reading the UKIP policy pamphlet, and this was an editorial in City AM. So what I'm telling you is that first and foremost, what UKIP wants is to withdraw from the EU, to have a referendum. Having it in 2017 is too late because they don't really want to do that. We have to have the European referendum, get out of Europe, and then basically have our own laws, control our own borders, and become our own country back again. Thank you. Your first question, I don't think it's something we should take up time with UKIP. I'm a scientist, I have studied this very, very carefully, and I'm very unhappy about it, and I haven't made my mind up on it. I basically, at the moment, have yet to be convinced. Thank you. Feelings very clearly, HS2 is an unbelievable vanity project. It's going to cost 50 billion at the moment. We know jolly well it'll be 70, 80 billion by the time it's finished. With regards to exactly what he's talking about, the European Union is now so corrupt and so full of criminals that nobody in their right mind can sign off the accounts. They haven't been signed off ever since it started. For the last 20 years, they've used KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, you name it. The last budgets were about £5 billion. I actually know one of my friends is in PricewaterhouseCoopers. He has actually spent the last few months in Brussels auditing it. He found 8.8 billion is missing. And he said what the really big problem is, nobody cares. Absolutely nobody cares. And it was in the paper, the Sunday Times, on page 3 at the top, just sort of giveaway line, 100 million awarded by one of the commissioners to his own company, and there was no checks or anything. It is the biggest corrupt cesspit going, which is why we have to pull out of it. Thank you. Many people have actually thought this through. We had actually saved 9 billion by getting out of the EU. That is what we pay, 55 million a day for absolutely nothing. Or if you pay 9 billion in, you get 1 billion back. Complete waste of time. We would then look at the foreign aid budget, which they all signed up to, going to be 14 billion next year. There's an independent report here basically showing that 80% of it is completely wasted and goes to corrupt regiments. We would then look at what the big independent report said on the real cost of being in the European Union to small businesses was. Even I didn't believe it was this big. It was £33 billion as the cost of red tape and EU directives to small businesses. By getting out of that and regulating it ourselves, it's another 33 billion. It goes on and on. That's over 50 billion straight away. So we would be able to fund the NHS and all the various things. It gets worse, or it gets better. Tim Condon's looked at it. He was the chief economist to Gordon Brown, till he realised he was mad. And he's shown that there's over 100 billion could be saved a year by getting out of the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think you ought to be fully aware that the austerity we have in this country is absolutely nothing compared to the austerity imposed by the vanity, stupid project of the euro. Implementing the euro has caused unbelievable poverty. 50% of people under the age of 30 in Greece, Spain and Italy are without a job or just scraping for a living, living with their parents. This thing has been absolutely dire. It's only because we kept out of it, against the wishes of Tony Blair, who's resurrected again like some monster to remind us all of this, that we actually have less than austerity everywhere else. And that's why everybody wants to come and join us. That's why our economy is actually starting to grow, because we stayed out of the euro. And just one last thing, if we now get out of the European Union directives, we'll do even better.
Thank you.
About this very hard over the years, and I can put it very simply, and that is, do unto others as you wish them to do unto you. Thank you. Well, I think the first thing to regain the trust of politics is to actually tell the truth and not to misguide and mislead all the time on major issues and then do the opposite of what you say when you get in. So I really believe that, I say the basic core thing about getting out of the European Union is the number one thing, and it actually affects everything else. And when you look at it, we would then look at exactly what goes on in Europe, what the costs are of higher education, etc., because in some places it isn't actually an awful lot cheaper. But I would not actually, if I got in tomorrow, advocate cutting the fee from 9,000 to 6,000, as the Labour Party has said, because we've looked through into that, and that will actually cause an awful lot of problems without thinking through something better over the next 5 years. And I mean that because we have looked at it, because it's such an attractive thing to say.
Thank you.
UKIP policy.